Earlier this year, the Riverside Discovery Center welcomed new Executive Director Kei Hodgson. We had the chance to sit down with Kei and get to know a little bit about him.
I was born in South Africa, born in Johannesburg. That's where I was born, and then when I was 2, we moved to a city called Port Elizabeth, which has now been renamed to Gqeberha, and so that's basically where I grew up. But my family, so my aunt and my uncle, also had a zoological facility about 4 hours outside of PE, as we used to call it, and that's basically where I'd spend all my holidays and the long weekends and as much time as I could, just basically being surrounded by animals and, just chased around by, tiger cubs and trying to find as many creepy crawlies and snakes and stuff like that to get involved with. And then as I grew older, I kind of got a bit more interested in the, I was always interested in the animal side of things, but a bit more interested in how to actually look after these animals and what actually goes into it. And so that's kind of how I cut my teeth. I started working there part-time at the age of 14, just basically doing anything and everything that the curators wanted me to do or the keepers wanted me to do. And looking back on it, it was a lot of stuff that they just didn't want to do, that they just handed off to me because I was just excited to be there and happy to do anything. So, I just kind of fell in love with the whole industry that way, and it gave me a chance to experience and learn about some animals in some really unique ways. And so yeah, that's kind of how I cut my teeth, and then I decided, okay, well, I'll actually give this a go for what I want to do with my life. I always knew I wanted to be involved with animals, but working in a zoo is a small part of working with animals. There's a global movement of conservation, whether it's game reserves or national parks or zoos. They have their role as well. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll give that a go, and I'll actually see. I became very invested in learning about how to run a zoo, and so I studied a Bachelor of Science in biology, in biological sciences, so majoring in botany and zoology. And while I was busy studying, I was working at the local museum, who had quite a big, or not a big as in terms of personnel, but really big in terms of the research that they were doing. They had a really big herpetology section, herpetology department, and so I was dealing with their local herpetologist, and I was kind of the assistant to the local herpetologist. I would compile and correlate their DNA samples that he had collected basically all throughout Southern Africa, and chat to him about papers and species. And when I finished my degree, I then moved full-time to Oudtshoorn, to the zoo, and started working there full-time. And about 6 months into that position, my uncle decided, he wants to retire at some point, and so I was kind of the only one in the family that wanted to take something over, and he knew that I was always very interested in how to run a zoo. So he started teaching me, and I had to go through all the different departments and learn everything I could about zoos and the functions that each department plays and the roles that each staff member has, and learn how to manage those people, learn all the financial sides of things, learn what's important for those departments to run and maybe what's not. And that's kind of how I cut my teeth in the industry. At the time that I applied for this position, I was the head of sustainability at Kanga Wildlife Ranch. So that was a department that I actually started. We needed something that was more kind of in line with us as a conservation facility, and something that kind of focused on reducing our carbon footprint and the effect that we have on the environment. It's all very good and well that we're trying to educate people on their impact on the environment, but we thought we needed to maybe take a closer look at our impact and how we could reduce that and how we could better affect the environment that we were in. And so I was head of that department. I've been doing that for, I believe, it was a year and a bit when I got this position. I was also the head of, well, one of the 3 directors of the Cheetah Preservation Foundation, which is the non-profit wing of Kanga Wildlife Ranch. And that basically was a foundation that focused on the captive breeding and research and conservation of cheetahs. We did a number of endangered and threatened animals as well, but our main focus was on cheetahs. And so that company had been around for 30 years, and it was a big kind of goal of the organization was to improve the genetics of cheetahs. They went through a population bottleneck a number of years ago, and so their genetic makeup is extremely weak. And in the US, you guys have got the Zoo Network have got species survival plans, which is basically a big network of zoos that will come together, and there's a manager of the SSP that will have a look at the makeup, the genetic makeup found in each zoo's population of whichever animal that was, and they kind of give their recommendations of where animals should be sent to. In South Africa, we don't have SSPs. The zoo industry there is not as big as it is in the States, and so we had to function as our own SSP, and we had to run the genetics of our population and make sure we were doing responsible breeding and improving the genetics that we had within our population. So, I mean, we had 30 cheetahs that we would have to worry about and determine who could breed with who, and play that whole game. And so that was quite a interesting organization to be a part of. We luckily, it was a lot of hard work, but there's also some luck involved. We managed to, as of last year, we managed to release our first cheetah back into a game reserve. So that was a big culmination of about 30 years of work, of research, of focusing on creating the best genetics that we can. And she's doing really, really well. She's at a game reserve called Sand Wild Sanctuary, and she's out there. So the big hope is that she will reproduce and actually get those genes that we've worked so hard back into the wild, and we can have an impact that way. So that was where I was before I came to this position. It's a bit of an interesting story. So I'm from South Africa. I was born and raised there. I've been working in the zoo industry there my whole life, and I thought I was going to be there for the rest of my life. And then I met my girlfriend 4 years ago, and she's actually from Nebraska. And so it came down to, is she going to move out to South Africa, or am I going to move there? And she's still studying her veterinary degree at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So she's kind of stuck here for a while, and we had been doing long distance for 4 years, and that was getting, tiring, and we were trying to see what the alternatives were. So I started looking for positions. I saw the advertisement for RDC needing a new executive director. I applied. They seemed to like me, which was surprising. But then I flew out, had an in-person interview after a Zoom interview, spoke with the board, met some of the keepers, toured the facility, and was very surprised at the capability of the team and the kind of community drive that a zoo like this has, being in such a small town. So that really impressed me about the place. And about I think a month and a half after my in-person interview and visiting the zoo, I got the email saying that they'd like me to come on board. So then it took a while to get through all the visa stuff and all the other red tape, and I started 15th of January. So it was quite exciting. They've got a very nice community, very small community, but there's always something going on, like I was telling you earlier. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting to me how much the zoo meant to the community and how much the community meant to the zoo, and just the history of the zoo and how the community has played such a pivotal role in its success. And always been there to support the zoo, and it's not often that you'll find a community this small, the zoo of this standard actually, and a zoo that's got the facilities that this place does. We've got an animal hospital on site, so if we have a vet that needs to come in and do anything, they do. Our current vet, luckily, she's got kind of a traveling vet clinic, I suppose. So she does everything in a van. But if we do need bigger space, we've got the availability here. We've got a quarantine section, which is really good. The exhibits are quite good, and there's a couple that we obviously wanting to renovate, but for a whole, the collection is very unique. There's a unique array of animals here. There's a lot of endangered animals here that you're not going to see in other zoos. An example of that would be the chimpanzee troop that we have. So we're the only zoo in Nebraska that actually has chimpanzees, which is very interesting, and they're always fun to watch. And we've got Smokey and Roger, and we're going to be adding to our family soon. It was very interesting when people were asking me, what animal are you most what North American animal are you most excited to see when you get to the States? My answer to them was raccoons, because I think they're very fun and they're very entertaining, and there's a reason that you see a lot of raccoon videos on Instagram and on social media, because they're very funny and interesting animals. And Flick, our raccoon, he's no different. He's very, very entertaining and charismatic, and he's a really fun animal to just sit and have a look and watch him when you've got 5 minutes free. So there's a lot to learn with American zoos. It's a bit different to, like I say, South African zoos, where you're a bit more isolated down there. There's a couple of zoos that you tend to work with, whereas here obviously there's hundreds of zoos, so there's a lot more here, and so learning about SSPs a bit more in a bit more detail and how those work, that's been very, very interesting. You guys have also got a very different collection, so it's been very fun and interesting working with those new animals and getting to learn their behavior and stuff like that. I've never worked with chimpanzees before, so that's very fun to see. Brown bears are new to me, mountain lions are new to me, although mountain lions, they are the closest living relative to cheetahs, so you can see there's a bit of similarity there. They are obviously very different species, but there's a bit of similarity there. With big cats in general, there typically is some common behavior between the species. There's some familiarity there with those animals. There's a good collection that we've got here, and it's quite an exciting collection. And like I say, very, very unique. We've got a lot of threatened and endangered animals that I've got very little experience working with, so it's interesting learning about them. Just as we try to teach everyone else about these animals and the problems they face, I'm learning a bit more about them. So we've got the red-ruffed lemurs, which are critically endangered. We've got the spider monkeys, which are endangered. We've got a good collection here that have got quite a variety of animals and a couple of endangered species, which is really good to see for such a small zoo. We're working on a couple of projects, and once we've got that kind of game plan ironed out, we'll start to announce a few more of the projects that we want to get up and running at the zoo, and I'm sure everyone else is going to be excited about it as well. The team here is very excited about it, and so that's something that I'm looking forward to. I'm excited to see the community engagement, which I'm sure will increase when we announce a couple of these programs. One of the things that I've already enjoyed and already experienced is the community engagement and how much everyone kind of is willing to help out or has got stories about the zoo. It's our 75th anniversary this year, which is quite impressive for a zoo, especially a small town zoo. And so one of the things that we're encouraging people to do is actually bring in some old photos that they may have of the zoo, or some old stories that they may have of the zoo, just to write it up and send it in to us. And the idea is that during the 75th anniversary, we're going to blow those photos up or blow those stories up and post them around the zoo, so that people can walk through and reminisce about what used to be here, what is there now. There's some funny stories connected to the zoo. We've got a photo of Sheriff Mark Overman with an ostrich that got out in early 1980s. We actually have it hanging on the wall, which is really funny, and he's written a blurb and he sent it in telling that story, and that's very interesting. There's been a couple of photos that have already been sent in, so we're excited for that community engagement portion during our 75th year anniversary, and just community engagement already that we've seen, and that people are wanting to get engaged with and wanting to get involved with, and I'm sure it's going to be a really good year for RDC.
Be sure to check out the community calendar and more stories from around the area on our website at www.aroundthetownnews.wordpress.com.